Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I bring you a really special video. My name is Henry and today I'm going to talk about the pandemic diseases from the Chinese medicine point of view. Okay, we're going to introduce you, and I'm going to introduce you a little bit about the theory, how Chinese medicine sees the pandemic diseases, and then I'm also going to introduce you kind of like the founder of these theories. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the coronavirus from the point of view of the Chinese medicine, okay? So welcome back again. I hope you like the video. Please like the video, try to share the video. It will help me a lot. And then try to subscribe to the channel, okay? Thank you very much. See you later. Hello everyone. So as I told you, we're going to talk about TCM, epidemics or pandemics, and then we're going to talk about the relation with the coronavirus, okay? So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to someone really important in the Chinese medicine. His name is Wu Ke, okay? So first thing is in order to understand the point of view of the Chinese medicine, it's really important to understand this character. He's a really important Chinese medicine doctor. He was the founder of the febrile school, okay? So it calls Wenbing school, okay? It's a way of treating disease, and he developed a new theory on Chinese medicine and a new way of seeing the diseases, a new way to treat it, okay? Second, he also was really important because he developed the theory of the plague diseases or the febrile pandemic diseases. So he developed a new theory, as I just explained you, and he lived during this time. Okay, so he lived during the time of 1582 to 1652. At the time was in the Ming dynasty, kind of like to the end of the Ming dynasty. Okay, so I will explain a little bit more about it. And then the most important thing that he did, he wrote this book that calls Acute Epidemic Febrile Diseases. This person is really important because as I just told you, he lived during the fall of the Ming dynasty, you know. So at the time, there was a lot of wars on that area, you know, like in China, there was a lot of different civil wars, and a lot of people want to take the power, you know. So the thing is like, Wu Ke, he was working as a doctor. He was like a travel doctor. So what he used to do, he was traveling around different places in different cities, and he was treating patients. So by the time he became a doctor, and then he was treating patients, so he realized that there was this time where the Ming dynasty was almost going to over. A lot of patients start to get ill. A lot of people start to get ill, and there was a lot of doctors that they tried to treat this with the traditional way of thinking. So before this era, it's really important to know that before his time, the most important school was the Shanghai school. Okay, so most of the Chinese doctors, they always use the Chanchongjing, you know, the Shanghai Lun, the Shanghai Lun theory. Okay, so most of the doctors, they always use Chanchongjing formulas, and then they always try to treat everything with that. And then like a lot of epidemic and a lot of pandemic diseases start to appear like in that area. And in his travels, he realized that there was a pandemic going on that time, you know. So a lot of people was dying and everything, and then he was actually worried about it. And then he was analyzing the thing, and then he realized that the traditional theory was wrong. Because, he was seeing at the time that a lot of doctors were trying to treat this kind of pandemic diseases with the Shanghai classic formulas from Chanchongjing, and actually they couldn't treat any of the patients. And then what happened is like these pandemics were actually really strong, and they were affecting a lot of people. So at that time, he came with a new theory that calls the febrile school. Okay, so he founded this theory of the febrile diseases. So in some way, he created a new way of treating diseases and a new way to see the diseases. Okay, so that's why he is really important. His theory, the first thing like he realized is like we couldn't. At the time they couldn't continue treating patients with the Shanghai, as I explained you. So the traditional theory tells us that there are pathogens that come from outside and attack our body, and they enter in the 6 meridians, okay? So in the six meridians, okay? There are 6 main meridians, and then you just go from the stages of the meridians. So you go from Taiyang Jing, then you go to Yang Ming Jing. So that's the traditional theory, okay? So he was talking about that. In this case, there was no external pathogens coming to the body, but there was different factors and different causes that actually cause this thing. So the first thing he said is that the main reason for these viruses to happen, or these, because I mean at that time they didn't know that was a virus, they didn't know that was a bacteria, like bacteria, they didn't know anything about it. But this guy has a really good theory, and actually he got really close of what we think right now about this epidemic. So the first thing he says that the weather, it's a really, I mean, I will tell you the 4 factors and then I will explain one by one. Okay, so he talked about 4 factors. Okay, the first factor he talked is about the weather. So he says that sometimes, according to the Chinese cosmology and all the studies they have about the weather, he realized that, in the Chinese cosmology, they divide they have kind of like cycles. And these cycles, they have 60 years. And during these 60-year cycles, sometimes on these cycles, there are irregular change of climate. Okay, so the weather is not as it has to be during the year. So for example, I don't know, if it's winter, and suppose the winter has to be from this time to this time, actually it's not. So that's what he means for an irregular change of climate. Okay. The second thing, the public health. So he started to realize that, for example, be crowd in a space without air ventilation will propagate these diseases. So actually he realized that he has to open the windows, he has to make people not really wash their hands, but at least to try to be more clean. He also talked about the food and everything the people has to take. And then also he talked about this calls the 5 evolutive factors. Okay, so the annual factors. So in the same theory, I was talking about of the cosmology theory of the Chinese medicine. So I talked you about this cycle that is 60 years. So also in these cycles, there is one factor to make these calculations that calls the annual factor. Okay, so what it means that every year, according to the theory of the 5 elements, every year is going to be correspondent to one of the elements. Okay, I can talk about that in another video, but it's okay. Well, I will just continue talking about it. And the last one, he talked about something that calls Li Qi. Okay, so he created this new idea that calls Li Qi. That translated Li Qi, it goes like pestilential factor. Okay, so as I told you, it was opposite to the theory. So we're going to talk right now about the pestilential factor. Okay, so Li Qi. So what was the Li Qi? That was the main factor that actually caused this pandemic disease, according to his theory. So this Li Qi, you can understand it as now we understand the germs. Okay, so it was really interesting because he realized, how he realized this thing. So one day he was treating some people, and then when he opened the windows, then the sunlight started to come in the room, and then he realized that if you look directly to the sunlight, you see that there is some small particles flying in the air. We can see it as dust. So he realized that actually there are things that are smaller than that our eyes are not able to see. And actually what he meant at the time was the same thing that we have right now, viruses, germs, we cannot see that. And he was thinking that was the main factor that was attacking people. So it was not a pathogen from the exterior that attacks the body. So it was a small particle in some way, like a particle that you cannot see. And then he was the first person to think about these viruses to be transmitted as airborne. Okay, so he was thinking that also these particles, when we breathe, we bring that particles inside of us. Okay, so after you bring those particles inside of you, then you will have the virus. Like if you breathe this Li Qi inside of you, then you will have the disease. And also it has to go together with these 4 factors I just explained you. Okay, so this basically, to summarize, is kind of like basically the theory of the pandemics for Chinese medicine. This is how it is, and right now I'm going to explain you a little bit about how this pandemic is seen from the Chinese medicine way. Like right now the pandemic we have, like, is the coronavirus. We're going to talk about a little bit how to see it in this theory. According to the theory of the Qi, that is if we translate it, it calls the 5 evolutive phases and the 6 climatic changes. So this is a way to calculate and kind of like to predict the weather and the diseases that are going to attack our body. So there is I talk about early in the video about this cycle that is 60 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it because it's a really long thing. So the thing is like this: a lot of people actually were confusing, and they were saying that actually the year of the virus, that when the virus is spread, is the year of the metal. That's wrong, according to the theory and everything. Okay, so the first time we saw the virus in Wuhan was in kind of like around December 12th, December 15th was kind of like report the first case. So the thing is like this was not in the year 2020, it was still in the year 2019. And according to the theory I just explained you and everything, this year is the year of the Earth. Okay, so this is the year of the Earth. So which organ is related with the Earth? We are talking here about the spleen. Okay, and if we see the time where the virus starts to have effect. Okay, so we are going to see that time was at the end of winter. Okay, so we have it here at the end of winter, and that end of winter is it's kind of like the season that is corresponding to the Earth or to the spleen. Okay, so the last days of every season are actually corresponding to the spleen if you study the theory. Okay, so you study the 4 seasons, the last days of every season corresponding to the spleen. So what happened? If we see it in that way, so the spleen for that year is going to be kind of like weak. So what it means, like everyone like in some way it's easier to get diseases related with the spleen. Okay, so the tie-in, we're talking there about tie-in, so it's really easy to get these kind of diseases. Okay, so another thing that is really important, I mean, there is other things to see in the table and in the charts, but it is going to take forever to explain you. But the most important thing to know, for you to know, is that thing. Okay, and according to the things about the 5 elements, we have it there. We have here the spleen. So this is the year of the spleen of the Earth. So the thing is like this: the virus that we have right now, the coronavirus, is a dampness and hot. Okay, so it combines dampness and hot together in most of the patients. So the first thing you can see, I mean, why we can think about dampness is because if you know a little bit about theory, the spleen and the Earth are actually affected by dampness. Yeah, if you have a really weak spleen, then it's easy for you to have dampness, and that's one of the reasons. Like in this case, the year is affecting, so that's why this pandemic is related with dampness. Okay, so yeah, and I mean, as I told you, I mean, there is other factors that might influence, they say, but we already explained the weather factor. That is the same 5 evolutive annual factor. Okay, we already explained that. And if we talk about the pestilential chi factor, we can talk about that the source was, according to the China government, was from the market in Wuhan for consuming some animals. So there was a pestilential factor that came out from the animals, and then we consumed or we actually inhale that thing, and also like related with the weather and everything was propense, so the virus will start to appear. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you like it. Please subscribe to the channel, give like, show your support so I can continue making related videos. If you have any question, if you want I talk about another topics, please leave a comment down below, and then I really hope you enjoyed. Okay, see you next time. Bye bye.